In this video, we will be laying out the shim plate. The first thing that I want to do is identify the overall height and width of my drawing. So here we can see that the overall height is 4 inches and the overall width is 6 inches. Taking a look at our drawing, I have provided you some reference lines to aid in the completion of this drawing. If we measure the width of our reference line, we get 6 inches. If we measure the height of our reference line, we get 4 inches. Given that the outside of our object is square, I'm going to darken in those reference lines to indicate the outside of this object. I next want to identify the locations for the rectangles inside of the object. If I base everything off of the bottom left-hand corner, I can see that my first box starts 1 inch over and 1 inch up. So on my drawing, I'm going to mark some reference points. So I'm going to come over 1 inch, but I'm also going to mark that towards the top, and with a very light pencil line, I'm going to connect those together. This will give me a reference line for the left side of my rectangle. I'm going to do the same moving upward from the bottom of the drawing. So I will mark that 1 inch reference line and put a mark. Now on this drawing, I have provided you a center point reference line running both vertical and horizontal. I'm going to use this to help me determine the other side of my first rectangle that I'm trying to place. Knowing that this center point reference line is placed in the center of my drawing, I can look at my original schematic and notice that each of these rectangles are 1 inch away from each other, which means if I were to draw a reference line down the center of the original object, each of these rectangles would be 1/2 inch away from that center vertical reference line. So on my original drawing, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch on either side of that center reference line. And I'm going to connect those together using a light pencil mark. Towards the top of my drawing, the rectangles are 1 inch from the top. So again, I'm going to draw a reference line 1 inch down from the top. And lastly, placing the rightmost reference line on my rightmost rectangle is also 1 inch from the right side of the object. I can double check any of my measurements to make sure that my rectangle is 1.5 by 2 inches, just to verify that everything looks correct before I darken in my lines. Given that everything looks correct, I'm going to go over my reference lines, but only on the portion that is part of the object. And at this point, our shim plate drawing is complete.